Thanks for joining us today. You're listening to the International Moving Podcast, your guide to moving to another country, brought to you by SDC International Shipping, LA's finest. An international move is exciting. It's a time to start over, establish a new business, maybe reestablish family ties, or retire where your budget will do more for you. Or maybe just the weather is more to your liking. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you have any questions about your international move, please give us a call at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962. Hey everyone, this is Jim for SDC International Shipping. Welcome to today's podcast episode. Today we're going to talk about moving from California to Europe. We're going to talk about more or less how can you do this without all of the hassle? How can you make the relocation as smooth as possible? Now, right now, there is a movement of people who are relocating out of California to other places around the world. As you know, if you live here in California, and by the way, SDC International Shipping is located right here in the Los Angeles area. But this would apply to anyone living in a place where maybe it's just not cost effective, or maybe it doesn't make sense to continue living in that location. Things change. Maybe you're deciding to go back to school and get an education. Maybe you're retiring or downsizing. But when we talk about moving from California to Europe, it can absolutely be an exciting and life-changing decision. Others have done it. They're glad they did it. And they say that when you get older, the only thing that you'll regret in the end are the things that you didn't try or the things that you were afraid to try. So I just want to throw that out there, but whether you want to move for work or education or just a change of scenery, it is a big step and it requires some careful planning and preparation. So from visas and healthcare to packing and shipping, there's a lot of things to consider before you embark on this kind of journey. So today we're going to talk about some of the things that are involved in making a move from, let's say, California to anywhere in Europe, and to be able to do it somewhat seamlessly. So why make the move to begin with? Why Europe? Well, there are many reasons why people choose to move from California to a European country. Number one, Europe is a really diverse continent. It has an incredible rich history, culture, natural beauty, and it's also home to some of the world's top universities, businesses, as well as tourist destinations. And maybe you've grown up here in the United States and you've seen what you want to see and you're looking for something different. Some people may be looking to start, for example, a new chapter in their lives, while others may be pursuing a career opportunity, education, or even romance. But whatever the reason, moving to Europe can be most definitely an enriching and fulfilling experience. So it starts with research and planning. Before you start packing your bags and booking your flight, it's important to do your research and to plan your move very carefully. Moving from California to Europe requires meticulous planning. It requires organization as well as attention to detail. So here are some of the essential considerations to keep in mind before you make this kind of move. Number one, the top consideration for most people is going to be financial. Moving to Europe, the actual move can be a little expensive, especially if you want to bring a lot of things or everything along with you. So it's crucial to create a budget and stick to it. Consider the cost of living where you're going. That includes housing, healthcare, food, transportation. All of these things have to be figured in. These are your financial considerations. Next are career opportunities. You want to research job opportunities in your destination country also before you make the move. You want to consider things like the job market, what the salaries are like, work permits required to work legally in Europe. Next is education. If you're moving for education, research universities or schools in your destination country. Consider things like admission requirements, tuition fees, and student visa requirements. These are all considerations that you're making, of course. A lot of these are common sense, but in the excitement to move, to make the leap, a lot of people, especially if you're a little bit younger, maybe you're not considering all of the things that you'll wish you had you not done it beforehand on the front end. So not to say that to make you nervous or to make it sound like it's a big deal, but it is your life. So yeah, things like finances and what career opportunities are available there, education. The other thing is family and friends. I know that moving to a new country can result in a bit of culture shock. I have friends here in South Florida who moved here from other countries. Some of them go back once a year to visit, some every few years. But it is important, I think, to have a support system in place, and that can make all the difference. So consider your family and friends, their availability and support before you make your move. Now, when it comes to researching your destination, your end destination, in the beginning, if you don't have your mindset on a specific country, you're just in the broad strokes planning stages. You could be looking at places like the Netherlands. I know someone that recently moved there. They're renting. They love it there, but they're not going to give up their U.S. citizenship. They just have a temporary visa, and they will be there for probably another year or so before returning here. There's places like Belgium. I had friends here who moved here to the United States from Belgium. It's a very beautiful country, but they moved here because there weren't enough work opportunities there. Greece, I have a friend that I graduated high school with who has been living there most of his adult life. France, Ireland, I have friends in Ireland and Germany and Spain, the UK, Italy. Most of us, if we've been online for a while, especially if you're involved in anything international, you've had the opportunity to meet people in these countries and learn a little bit more about what these countries are like. Also, you could go, there are groups on Facebook where you can talk to people from these countries and discover little tidbits of information you wouldn't have otherwise discovered had you tried to just do most of the legwork on your own. So go ahead and research several different locations, look at the pros and the cons. Now, when we think about things like, for example, language is an essential aspect of any move, especially to a foreign country. So it's essential to know what language is spoken in your destination country, and if it's different from your native language, you may need to learn it. Knowing the local language, of course, can help you communicate much easier, make new friends, and navigate around your surroundings. I know here in the United States, there are people that come here from, let's say, Central America, Mexico, and there's a lot of people here that speak Spanish, but there's still more people that don't. And so it's very difficult for them to communicate when they're speaking in Spanish and someone else only knows English, and you're trying to ask questions or provide a little bit of guidance. There's a disconnect there. So language is really more important, I think, than people realize, especially on a day-to-day basis. Culture is another thing. Culture plays a significant role in the fabric of any country, and that includes the customs and traditions of that country. The ways of life vary from one region to another. So before you move to another country in Europe, it's vital to research the local customs and traditions, as they may be significantly different than your home country. Some things you would say here, maybe in the United States, you would never say or put it the way we would put it in a foreign country. It would come across as insulting. I even noticed in a few countries where people were sitting for public transportation on a park bench waiting for public transportation, that in certain countries they sit very close together, even like elbow to elbow or arm to arm, and it's part of their culture here. Whereas here in the United States, people like to have their room. That would be considered, if somebody's arm is pressed up against yours and they weren't moving, you would probably get up and stand if you had to. Again, small little cultural things like that. It's good to know and become aware of those things. And that way you can avoid social blunders, make a good impression, and it will help you integrate better into a different community. Climate is a huge thing. Climate is something that you would definitely want to consider. Before moving, research the climate in your destination country to determine if you will need to adjust to that new climate. Some people do really poorly in rainy weather, those type of conditions. Even here in the United States, we could go to the Northwest, a place like Seattle where it rains quite a bit. Some people it doesn't bother, some people enjoy it, and some people would be depressed. I know I come from the Northeast where the sky would be cloudy sometimes for a week at a time. That would be the same in several countries that immediately come to mind over in the UK. But now, having lived for so long in the state of Florida where it's sunny like almost all of the time, and even when we do have storms, the sun is always out. In other words, if we don't see the sun for a week here in this state, that's a complete anomaly. It almost never happens. When it does, it reminds me of my days back up in New Jersey. So climate is something very important to consider. Cost of living, of course, we already talked about that. but really to get the numbers and figure out what it is that other people are paying. Because, of course, until you rent there or until you buy there or until you land at your destination, there's going to be things that you're just probably not going to figure in. Right now, at the time of this recording, of course, we're in the middle of super inflation. I mean, I've been experiencing inflation. I've noticed it for the last 20 years, but it was really coming on strong over the last several years. And it's amazing how far your money went maybe 20 years ago as compared to how far it's going today. But now you could look at 3 or 4 years ago how much further your money went than it goes today. I remember going to the store and $20 used to be able to buy a nice amount of things. Talking about a grocery store, $30, $40, $50 would buy a decent amount of food. But today, that same money, it's almost double that for the same amount of things that we used to buy. So cost of living is definitely significant, and we can look in areas such as housing, healthcare, transportation, food, other necessities that you'll be looking at in that destination country. So, and the cost of living can vary significantly from one country to another. Just like here in the United States, cost of living can vary significantly from one city or one state to another. Safety is another concern when you're moving to another country. Before you move, you want to research the crime rates and the safety issues, not just in the destination country, but in the specific area you may be moving to or renting in. I know there's some places where, here even in the United States, taxi cabs will not go after dark. Those areas are just too dangerous. And that's true really no matter where you live in the world. There are certain places where it's really not safe to go out under certain situations, certain conditions, certain parts of the area people keep out of for a good reason. So having an understanding of this before you go there and to be aware of this is important to keeping your belongings safe and so on and so forth. So it's always good to register with an embassy, with your embassy or your consulate, wherever you are, and they can also help provide you with some assistance once you're there if needed. Lifestyle is another thing to consider. Factors such as the work norms, leisure activities. A lot of times people move to another country with lifestyle as their primary motivator. And so if you know what type of lifestyle is commonplace where you're going, you can determine whether or not that's a good fit for you. And it can also help you prepare for any adjustments you may need to make as far as adopting to a new way of life. I know certain countries, some of my friends have come here from Italy, and they were talking about how they would go to a market every day and they would buy the food that they needed for that day or for the next several days, and they would get twice as much in Italy. Now, this was 3 or 4 years ago. I talked to a person about this, but they went into a supermarket here and they were just stunned by the prices of vegetables here in the United States. They said it was probably about a quarter of what it cost here to buy vegetables, fresh vegetables even, there in an Italian marketplace. So some of these things are nice discoveries to make. Some maybe not so much, but okay, let's keep on moving forward. The timeline, creating a moving timeline. Once you have the general idea, maybe you're painting, mentally speaking, in broad strokes, you're starting your research, you're starting your planning. Then comes a time where you want to figure out a timeline, because a moving timeline will help you stay organized and ensure that everything's done on time. So here are some of the things to consider. Number one, of course, you're going to notify your employer or your school that a move is coming up. Get all the necessary paperwork you need from them. Next comes things like booking flights and transportation. Maybe you're going to go and stay there for a month in the beginning and just become sort of acquainted with the area before you pick an area to settle down in. You're going to have to find a place to live, of course, and then comes the packing of all of your belongings that you're going to take with you. A lot of my friends who have moved internationally have done it in steps where they take a certain amount of things and they move it over and they see which area they're going to live in. And that process may take a year or two before finally coming back to the United States and selling their home and packing everything up and doing it. Others I knew just did it all in one shot. They moved all of their important things over using international shipping, and then after that, a company like SDC we can take care of all of that for you and also guide you through the process of not only what goes into packing, storing, freight, and all of that, but things like obtaining necessary visas and permits or necessary vaccinations and medical records that you may need. And then, of course, there's other things like the canceling of utilities and subscriptions that you may have in California, how to have a timeline for when you would do that, and how to register with the governmental authorities then in your destination company. Now, talking about choosing an international mover and shipping company, moving from California to Europe will be at times overwhelming if you don't choose the right kind of shipping company. What you want to do is you want to choose an experienced international shipping company, one that specializes in international shipping. And that's what we do at SDC International Shipping. That's our specialty. We are one of the top international moving companies here in the Los Angeles area. We have a global presence and network, and we're dedicated to making your move as smooth and as stress-free as possible. We understand that no two moves are the same, and that's why we offer personalized solutions to meet your specific, unique needs. Our mission statement is to safely deliver our clients' shipments to their destination, and we achieve this by providing comprehensive moving services. Total white glove, if that's what you want, packing, loading, transportation, all of that, while ensuring that your belongings are handled with the utmost care. And as an experienced international moving company, we have dedicated facilities for storage and shipment preparations both here in the United States and abroad. And additionally, we have exclusive partnerships in other parts of the world, ensuring that we can assist you with your move to any location. Now, one of the key benefits in choosing a company like SDC, for example, is that we are licensed by the Federal Maritime Commission for international sea shipments. And this certification ensures that we meet the highest standards for safety and quality in the industry. We have a dedicated team both on the east and west coast of the country. Here in the United States, we can serve clients with origin destinations anywhere in the United States. So today we're focusing on people moving from California, but if you're listening to this and you're outside of California, that's not a problem. So you can contact us at any time, 877-339-0267 to discuss your move and learn about how we can help you make that relocation successfully and without all of the stress and the anxiety that a lot of people feel because they just don't prepare properly. They cut corners or they don't think about things. And so what was that old saying? Abraham Lincoln said that if he had 3 hours to cut down a tree, he would spend, I think, 2 of those hours sharpening the axe. Well, that's the approach really that you have to take. The preparation is everything. Now, visas and legalities. Moving from California to Europe requires obtaining necessary visas and permits to live and work legally in your destination country. So here's just some things to consider when obtaining your visa and permits. Number one, you have a tourist visa. A tourist visa allows you to stay in a country for a limited amount of time of travel purposes only. But this is how you learn about what the place is like, and maybe something that you thought was a positive really isn't. And so you decide that, okay, we're going to go and look at a different location, and that's why it's worth investing that time on the front end. There's also student visas. A student visa allows you to study in your destination country for a specific period of time. And then there's work visas. A work visa allows you to work legally in your destination country. So those 3 basic types of visas. There's permanent residency, and that's if you plan to stay in your destination country long term, then you may want to consider applying for permanent residency. Permanent residency allows you to live and work in your destination country indefinitely. And the requirements for permanent residency, they will vary by country, and they can be complex. So it's essential to research what those requirements are and how they will apply well in advance to your move. Next is registering with the authorities in your destination country. So again, you might want to put that on the to-do list. Make sure that you have the necessary documents, understand what the benefits are being there. You may have to obtain a tax number, Social Security numbers, health insurance, all of those things. So it's essential to research registration requirements in your destination country or for your destination country, and to be able to complete that paperwork as soon as possible. That's not something that you want to put off for the last minute. You know how they always say that things, when you're planning for a vacation, for example, it's always going to cost more than you anticipate? Well, it's the same thing with a big project like moving internationally. There's always more to it. And so I think it's great that you know as much of this as possible up front so that you can make a plan of what you have to do, when you have to do it, and get started with it ahead of time. There's nothing worse than leaving something for the last minute and then something that you thought was going to be done immediately is pushed off 30, 60, 90 days into the future. Healthcare and insurance. Those are more important to some people than others. If you're young, maybe you don't have any health problems or challenges. Maybe that's something that mentally you just gloss over. But there are other things to consider as far as healthcare and insurance goes. Accidents do happen, unfortunately, to some people. Now, there is a healthcare system in Europe, and it does vary country by country. But in general, most people will agree that they do offer high-quality health care to their citizens and their residents. However, healthcare costs can be high, so it's important to obtain insurance coverage just in case to avoid any costly or unforeseen medical bills or expenses. Next, there's finding insurance coverage. Before you move, research the insurance options in your destination country. Maybe you need to get private insurance, or maybe you need to enroll in the public healthcare system, but it's essential to research the costs of coverage and the different types of insurance options that are available to find the plan that best meets your needs. Next, we can talk about things like obtaining necessary vaccinations. In some countries, they require for you to have specific vaccinations before you can even enter the country now, not to mention living in it. So it's important to understand what their vaccination requirements are and to obtain those vaccinations that are necessary before you move. Now, we can look at things like housing and the cost of living. Of course, no matter where you go in the world, the numbers are going to vary greatly from place to place. For example, if you go to a New York or a London or a Paris, France, of course, everything's going to be priced premium prices there. Not just for your rent, but probably for the food, for your water, electricity. All of those things are going to cost more in a big city. So maybe you decide that you want to research some neighborhoods, places outside a city location. For specific reasons, someone may opt to live in a city because what they need, what they want, what they're looking for is in that type of surrounding. But for other people, maybe you decide you want to be more in a rural area. It fits your lifestyle, it fits your work better. As far as work goes, so many people today are working from home. You can be employed by a company and you do most of your work remotely. All you need is a good internet connection. And that's another thing, of course, you'd want to research. Do they have high-speed internet? Is it reliable internet in the area you're thinking about moving to? If not, and that is part of how you make your living online, then you're going to have to look into some of the options to overcome that particular challenge. Cost of living throughout Europe, it varies from country to country, city by city. And so, again, sometimes if it's not within your budget, plan A, you can have a plan B, another area that you'll land in. I thought of it like this when I moved from the Northeast here to the Southeast. When I moved from New Jersey to Florida, I thought, I'm not exactly sure where I want to end up in this state. It's a huge state, and there's a lot of options, just like California. California is a huge state. Lots of options, lots of places to live. Maybe you like being in the mountains more. Maybe you want to be near the beach, but maybe you can't. Maybe you have to get there in 2 or 3 steps instead of a single step. So when I moved here, I moved in a place that was a fairly rural for its time. It was a while ago, but there were quite a few farms. And the main location that I wanted to arrive in, I wasn't able to get here. It took me a little while immediately because as far as the cost of living goes, it was much more expensive than it was where I went. My ultimate destination was north of where I am today. And I'm only talking about 30 minutes north. The cost of living there was much more cost effective for my needs at the time than where I am today. And that brings up things like renting versus buying. Do you want to rent or do you want to buy a home in your destination country? Renting, of course, is the easiest option. You don't have to worry about certain insurances, and if something breaks, it's the landlord's responsibility. But over the long haul, buying a home may be more cost effective, so you'll have to research the housing market there. All right, I've covered quite a bit in today's episode. I hope I've given you some things to think about. Really enjoy the topic of moving internationally. I think it's something that even if you're not going to do it, just learning how it works helps you understand how all of these systems work. In some cases, it makes you appreciate where you are more. But there's a lot of people doing it. We have a society that's more mobile than ever before. It's nothing for people to move from country to country today in 2023 as it was in the past. The logistics, the technology, companies are here like SDC International Shipping to make the whole process easier than ever before. So if this is something that you're interested in, be sure to give us a call, listen to this podcast episode again, reach out to people on social media, ask about what things are like in that country, and then begin that whole process of planning out your whole relocation journey from start to finish. All right, that's about all for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you in the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for listening. Whether you're relocating within the country or moving to the other side of the world, we're here to help from start to finish. Connect with us today at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962.